What is shaking, everybody? Welcome back to the Spins Vinyl channel and your brain on vinyl. I am here with my co-host, Chris. Chris, how's it going, dude?
It's going good, man. It's been a blur this past week with the holidays.
Dude, I know every year is the same thing, man. I always freak out when Halloween starts getting close. In fact, my birthday's right before that. I literally just write off the next 2 months because I'm like, it's just gonna spin by, and then we'll be in January, and I'll be brushing myself off and everything. But yeah, it's crazy how
Uh,
fast the last quarter of the year goes by, man.
by the
Having
time I
said that,
recover, it'll be July 4th by the time I recover.
oh man, don't say that. Um, so what's up, everybody? Welcome, welcome, welcome. Today it is the 30th of December. We are staring 2025 right in the face. We thought it would be a great time to do kind of a New Year's resolution stream and let you guys talk about your New Year's resolutions. And Chris and I can talk about our New Year's resolutions as it relates to vinyl and just records and just everything related to the community and just our hobby and stuff like that. So I think it's going to be super fun. We got a list of things to go over, and we got some categories for you. We'll go down the list. And yeah, as I said, I mean, guys, chime in and let us know what you guys think. Let us know what you guys have on your New Year's resolution list. For me, dude, it's kind of like, and like I said, I'm sort of like hyper aware of the year end beginning in like October. And honestly, when December hits, like I'm already kind of trying to plan what my next year is going to look like. And so I kind of get a head start on this stuff so that when January 1st hits, I'm like already, trying to develop new habits, and it makes me feel better that I can go into January feeling like I don't just have a list of things, like I'm already being active in, making some changes or developing and stuff like that. So yeah, I feel good, man. I feel good going into the new year. What's your strategy, dude? Are you kind of wait till last second, dude? Are you kind of get a head start on it?
Well, this is a first for me tonight because I've never made a New Year's resolution before. So what better place to start than the hobby that engulfs my life? So it'll be so. I mean, I'm always. I guess I'm always identifying things I want to do differently, whether it's the new year or halfway through the year or whenever. So this is just a good way to put a stake in the ground and say, all right, going forward, here's my goals. And as you progress in the hobby, I think you're always kind of tweaking and then going back and applying your new behaviors to your existing records and things like that. So there's some of this stuff on my list I've been thinking about doing for a while. This gives me a good reason to forge forward with it.
Yeah, it's kind of like anything that you're doing. There's like this line in the sand. I think a birthday is that way now too. As I get older, it's kind of like, all right, by the time I hit my next birthday, it's like a real benchmark. Like I want to be doing X, Y, and Z moving into it, just because I don't want to get too complacent. And even like, doing this and being a content creator and stuff like that has made me really, I kind of break things into like 3-month chunks or even smaller, like you said, and just kind of reassess where I've been, kind of think about where I want to go next. And so anyway, but end of year is a good time to do that. We're going to jump right in. And I think the first one I had here was vinyl collecting rituals. And for me, this kind of comes down to, and I've talked to Chris about this a little bit, which is, starting in 2019, probably through 2023, I was very much into the ritual of like, I learned everything I was going to learn from Michael Fremer, about matrix codes and pressings and labels and all that stuff. And so I was making very intentional purchases. And so it was already a lot of research. Like, it's not just like buying a record like it used to be, when I was a kid. It was like, all right, do all this research, make sure this is a good pressing, make sure that, check all those boxes off, balance value versus quality and all that stuff. And so anyway, it was just this long drawn out process just to buy a record. Then record arrives, assess the record. Is this the record I paid for? Or is there something wrong with it? Is it damaged? Okay, everything looks okay. Let's clean it. Let's get it into, static free sleeve, inner, outer. Let's spin it, the whole thing. Let's get it on the shelf. And it was like an assembly line which is fine. And I know a lot of us do that. It's just that for me, it was becoming like an obsession. And I was really getting to the point where so much of my enjoyment of music was now being committed and devoted to everything leading up to listening to music, right? It was the curation of it. It was the cleaning of it. It was the sleeving of it and all that stuff. And it was obsessive. It was expensive. And it was, again, it's fine, but it's just that by the time I got to the end of 2013, after about 4 years of this, I was kind of like, man, I just want to chill. I just want to like go back and appreciate. It was almost to the point where it was so much work, I wasn't even listening as much because like the preparation for it was just too much. The time that I could put into listening, I was putting into other stuff related to vinyl. So I made a conscious decision in 2024. I'm gonna chill. I'm just gonna see where this takes me. I'm not gonna worry about it as much. And so I bought less records. I didn't. If a record came in and it looked like it needed to be cleaned, it got cleaned. If it didn't, I didn't clean it. If it had a decent inner sleeve, it just stays in the inner sleeve, even if it was a paper sleeve, which was like a sin for 4 years, right? And actually it relieved a lot of like the stress or the anxiety that was coming out of those first 4 years of like, I say first 4 years, but just since I kind of got back into it again, of just the obsession of the whole ritual of it. So anyway, 2025 for me is going to be about sort of finding that balance, right? Pendulum was all the way one way. It kind of spun back the other way in 2024. 2025 is going to be just, allowing myself to reintroduce some of those other things without putting a lot of pressure on myself. I don't want to get obsessed about it. I don't want to, be in that world where I was like, it was almost like it was so much work buying a record. I just want it to be playful and fun. So that's my first New Year's resolution. Is I still want to continue on with what I did in 2024, relieving some of the stress, mitigating some of that ritual, but I'm ready to introduce some of it back, I think. So that's
Yeah, I
my
thought
first
about.
interest.
I'm the same. I'm very ritualistic about the purchasing and logging on Discogs and cleaning and inner sleeves and all that stuff. And I dissected that process a little bit, and I could say that I do it, but I don't do it as quickly as I used to. I let things build up and then kind of do it in one shot. I don't think I'll ever remove that. I do find some zen in it a little bit, or I like to have that, but I've always been that way, collecting things and kind of having them organized. I'm actually not a very organized person personally, unless it comes to my records. So, I've picked some
That's your
areas
one thing where you can like zen out.
Yeah, I know where everything is, but I can't find my keys most days, or I forget my wallet at home all the time and have to circle back or whatever the case may be. So, but yeah, I thought about it, and it does become a bit obsessive, even to the point where, even like a year and a half ago or 2 years ago, I went back and like ripped down all my albums and changed all the inner sleeves. So like all of them are the same. It's a little quirky. So I get where you're coming from. I haven't been frustrated with it yet, but it might come one day, because it does take away. And there's also an anxiety that comes about opening a record. I think a lot of us have experienced this. And I don't know if it's necessarily all of our faults, but there's a lot of quality control issues in the past 2.5 years, maybe 3 years, where it's like you open it, and before you can even enjoy the fact that you're going to play it, I'm like inspecting it. Is it warped? Does it have any issues on it? And then I'm like, when I'm listening to it, I'm like listening intently to see if there's defect. And I've tried to really get away from that aspect. So I guess that might be a resolution for me, is just to put it on and like let the needle groove and not be so critical. But it's hard, because this is not a cheap hobby, and you invest in it, and you don't want to have to go through chasing the right, not even the right pressing, because that's a whole nother ball of wax, but just one that isn't effective. And I just find there's been a lot of issues recently.
Well, and I love what you said too about Discogs, which kind of has you made me think of two things. The first one is in 2024, I don't think I am so far behind on Discogs that I may have entered a couple of the records I purchased last year on Discogs. And I kind of swore off Discogs. I was kind of like, again, that's just another layer of work. Now I have to research what's the exact pressing of this. It's one thing if you buy it off Discogs, right? And you can just, drag it right in basically. But there's that aspect of it, just keeping your collection up to date on Discogs, which I'm way behind. And that is something else I want to address going into 2025. But also, you mentioned like quality control. Same thing with used records. I mean, whether you want to call it quality control or just overgrading or whatever you want to call it, because I buy a lot of used records. I think we're sort of different in that sense. Not saying you don't buy, I know you buy used ones, but you also buy a lot of new records. I know I buy very few new and way more used. And so for me, it's like, yeah, I get a record, you put it on the turntable. It's not the grade that it was, that they promised it was going to be. And so it's like, that's another frustration with Discogs. But yeah, so anyway, just made me think of those two things, man.
Yeah, I think like the reason why it's easier for me to really stay on top of Discogs is like exactly what you said. I'm not buying albums that have 78 variations already. It's like
right.
Barcode, new release Barcode. Is it EU? Is it American? Is it just world? Like whatever it is. And it's like, okay, this is easy to filter away. And I made a lot of mistakes early on Discogs. Like I know I've gone back to a press. I'm like, oh, this isn't the right pressing now that I've learned so much, from 10 years ago or whatever. And it's like, oh, I have to recatalog this. And that's like a chore. And then it makes me want to, now back to my earlier point, it makes me want to go back and like rip everything off the shelf and make sure everything's right. I did an audit actually 2 years ago too, because I had a problem with Discogs. A lot of the stuff I cataloged like disappeared and I had to write their tech support and like there were no help. So I had to like go back. This is a long story, make it short, but I went back to like a purchase date and looked at all my emails and receipts and like found the time where things weren't registered and then like how to re-enter them. So that gives me like anxiety, because when you're in a store or someone asks you like, do you have that? Like most of the time I know, but sometimes I'm like, I have that, but I'm not sure which one I have, so I have to go back, and it's good to have that resource. I used to do it in Excel, but I use Excel at work all day. I don't want to use it in my personal life. I can avoid it. But yeah, so, I have some resolutions similar to that, but my number one for this year, and which I've already put into practice, is patience. And a lot of people talk about patience when you're looking for like your Grail records. I'm just talking about stuff that I want, because it's always been in my DNA since I'm a kid. Like I was always the kid on new release day, like I had it, or I had it like the next day. So it's like always been ingrained in me. And even like when streaming was big and like digital stuff, it'd be like 12:01 on Thursday night. Like I got to hear it if I'm awake, So I started doing this in December. I did like window shopping, except for the Tone Poets. Those obviously came, but I made a list of everything I wanted to buy every week, and I just have it in an iPhone note, and I haven't bought anything. And that includes pre-orders. And I found like a couple of days ago, I went through the list and I knocked like 3 things off. I'm like, I'm not going to get this. Where in the past I would just buy it. So I'm trying to exert some patience. Plus, the FOMO is over on a lot of these things. Like there was that scarcity for a couple of years with supply chain issues and stuff where Tone Poet would come out. I'm just using Tone Poet as a common example. And it would be inflated in price 3 months later because nobody had it and it was out of print already, or not out of print, but not unavailable. And it wasn't being reprinted yet or repressed yet. And that's over. Like, if you go on Amazon or your local, the stuff gets discounted in a few months or 6 months, whatever it is. And I just got to be more patient with that, because a lot of times I get caught up, and I'm not a completionist on a lot of things, on a lot of series. There are a few I like to be. Even though I love the Tone Poet series, for instance, I don't have all of them. There's a handful I don't have. I do have most of them. But like even on the contemporary catalog that Acoustic Sounds is redoing with Kraft, I just got into a habit where I was like, oh, the new one's out, let me buy it. And about 6 months ago, I just stopped that. So there's a few of them like I'm glad I didn't get. And I resisted the Pablo series. So there's a lot that, I want to be more patient with, because to your point, when we've talked offline, like I don't have indefinite space or funds. I can't just like run out of runway and then scrambling in the future and like, what am I going to do? And I also buy a lot of box. Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
I also buy a lot of boxes. Like I think I'm one of the few people that like look forward to those deluxe editions. I like having them. And I think one of the things I have to consider is, do I just get the CD box instead of the vinyl box and things like that? But it's tough. You know, I think I'm just going to be more selective on some of those things and not just jump, because like I said, it's been in my DNA for 25, 30 years. When it comes out, I always have it, and it's okay to be a little late.
Yeah, I think the box sets are tough, right? Because they do dry up, and then it's like they go into the secondary market and they blow up, the prices blow up and stuff. Tone Poet is a great example because it's funny. Even our friend Chris from Wickham Brown was commenting about, he showed a Tone Poet on sale on Amazon, kind of like, wow, you know, I wish I could wait or something like that, right? Well, that's how I buy mine. You know what I mean? It's like I
Yeah.
don't subscribe to the Tone Poet Society. I'm not going to. I selectively pick the ones I want, and I always just wait for them to go on sale. Yes, that means I don't get them immediately. I just picked up one that I really wanted, the Tony Williams, that came out earlier this year and stuff. And yeah, I really wanted that record, but I'm just gonna wait till it goes on sale. It went on sale a few weeks ago and I snagged it, you know. So it's kind of
Yeah.
like, that's a new thing for me though. That is something that I picked up kind of in 2024 where I'm just like, and even used stuff, you know, like you see some, well, no, another new one I'll use it as an example is that everyone's been waiting for Pharoah Sanders record. Everyone that's into Pharoah Sanders, Loving Us All. It's been, you know, needing a reissue. It finally got reissued. It sold out in one day. They were going for over $100 because when they first came out, there weren't any available. And I'm like, I'm just not going to do it. You know, originals went skyrocketed to almost $200. I just waited and waited and waited. Finally, they started appearing on Discogs and eBay for $50. So I pulled the trigger, you know, and I felt like I'd won the lottery, you know, because here I'd been waiting for this record for like 2 years. And yeah, I mean, patience was a virtue. So if you can live without it, and I know some content creators, they want to review the records, they want them immediately. In those cases, yes, I will pull the trigger on some just so I have it and I can review it. But when it comes to personal collection stuff, it's like, man, patience is a virtue.
Well, especially like with the reissue stuff. I mean, there's I would say more than like 75% of the reissues that come out, I've had some kind of interaction with over my time. So it's not like it's something I've never heard before for the most part. And you know, it's just this idea that a lot of the stuff that they're putting back out is classic, and they're not gonna it's a way to print money for them. They're not gonna just not put it back
Right.
in print. Like, it's crazy to think that. And I also have this, and this is why some of my other resolutions kind of tie into this indirectly, but I'm also of the opinion that people are really going to abandon this hobby in the next couple of years. And I feel like a lot of this stuff is going to come back into the secondary market at pretty aggressive pricing.
Mhm.
So you can always go back and and make up for what you lost. It is what it is, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a tough time to be overpaying for records right now because you're right. I think that value is it's gonna hurt people that spend a lot of money on this stuff.
Yep.
All right. In the interest of time, we'll jump into meaningful curation is greater than collecting. And maybe you could describe this too, because I kind of got this verbiage from you. We talked about this on Surface Noise a few months ago. So maybe talk about what the difference between curation and collecting, and then we can jump into why this is a New Year's resolution.
Yeah, to me, you can be both, and that's the pinnacle. I think if you're on both sides of the coin, but collecting would be quality over quantity. Perhaps multiple pressings of the same album, completing a discography of OGs, things like that. Or curation is being a little bit more selective in what you purchase. Only buying things, not buying things because of hype, not buying things because like, oh, I have to have a first UK pressing of Sgt. Pepper's because I have to, but you're not even like a big Beatles fan. And there's something wrong with that. Like, that's going to be present in every hobby, and I don't discredit anybody for doing that. The ultimate goal for me to be able to do both. Like, I have, 6 different copies of this album, and this is the difference. But for me, I have to be more dialed in on that stuff. And I think when we had that discussion like several months ago, I think Brandon, Mr. Hall of Fame, had a great comment that the curating part is the stuff is getting the stuff that means the most to you and what you're going to listen to, and that's the journey you go on. You start off as a collector because you're just trying to grab records to build up your stock, but then you start to kind of wean out and really focus on what means the most to you, getting the grails, getting the artists you love, trying new artists and things like that. So to help me with that, one of the things I'm going to try to do, which is going to be hard for me because it's a 7-year journey, is I'm going to really try to finally walk away from the annual subscription of Vinyl Me Please. I've already canceled 2 tracks in the past quarter, and it's just because, they have time to fix themselves before I make the decision. But I just feel that a lot of the issues, a lot of the releases they're putting out, I'm just swapping them out, and I'm just like, this is a waste of money. I mean, I'll reuse the credits eventually, or I swap them for something in their store. But it's like, what am I hanging on to this for? I just keep on thinking they're going to come around, but clearly they're not. So we'll see.
Right.
So that goes back to like I don't have to have like every VMP release because I'm in that club, or like even with the Atlantic 75 series, I don't keep every one, even though I have a subscription to it. I get rid of a lot of the ones that I'm not going to listen to. So I'm trying to, I know Cesar wants me to dump it. It's hard because there is stuff I've really enjoyed even recently that they put out, but I'm starting to realize like I could just sign up when I need to sign up instead of kind of being a loyalist. And there is no reason to be loyal to them anymore. They don't really give that much benefit for
well, and that's a mouthful,
crazy.
because if you're going to have a subscription right now, it's going to benefit you to add some value. Give people something, you know what I mean? Like the same, the Tone Poet Society. That's why even though I'm not gonna subscribe to it. I hope that we see more them kind of leading the pack, in a sense that the more you get, the more you save. Free shipping, exclusive, vinyl and stuff like that, quarterly. Like that's giving people something, right? That's adding the value. And yeah, I just hope that people take a page out of that book, because if it's just, the privilege of buying something at regular price, and especially these ones where you don't even know what it's going to be, it's like, yikes. But yeah, for me too, it's going to be similarly, although it's going to be curating the collection I have as well. It's going to be, I have very little space, and I don't listen to everything. I don't know anyone that does. You know what I mean? It's like, especially you start building these huge collections, it's like, let's be realistic here. If you want to add something, and I think Brandon talked, we're in lockstep on this, is, sometimes I need to sell something to pay for something, or sometimes I need to move something so that I could bring. I mean, how many more times am I going to move my Glenn Miller records to make room for new jazz stuff? You know what I mean? It's kind of like, I'm not listening to that. Get a greatest hits and be done with it, And so those are all things that, I want to look at going into 2025 also, is just creating some space, instead of like every time I buy something, I'm like shoehorning it in somewhere. It's kind of like, look, there's so much of the stuff I'm not going to listen to, and just being honest, like that's a very, I think, intentional choice you have to make. Like you said, it's going to be like prying it out of your hands to cancel some of these subscriptions. Likewise, if someone just told you, okay, unload 10% of your records, you have to ask yourself some questions. Am I listening to this stuff? B, would I repurchase this if I didn't have it? Is this a record that I would go seek out and buy if I didn't have it? If the answer is no, then think about that. If I lost this record in a fire or a flood, could I live without it? Or would I feel some sense of relief in some cases? If you ask yourself those questions, then I think it's easier to kind of really figure out what makes sense to part with and what makes sense to keep. So not all of us are in that position. But for someone like me that has very little space, it's kind of like, I think about all the records that I still want. I have to make some tough decisions. So that is something I'll be thinking about going into 2025, is just the curating part of it, curating not only what I want, but also what I already have.
Yeah, and that kind of ties into like another resolution, not to just because it's perfect for this topic. I've been doing this, just purging and deduping a lot of what I have. Like some things I'm going to have multiple copies of, but a lot of the stuff I have dupes of just from getting stuff over time. I just don't need to hold on to. And it's just really to make room. I don't even care if I'm getting the right value for it. It goes to somebody who's going to enjoy it, and it's out of my hair basically, so I can get the things I want. So
Yeah.
that kind of ties in with the collecting and curation too, is just making room and making right decisions.
I like what Jazzy Jeff is saying. He said he has the comment about VMP tried canceling, but they said it was too late. So think about your timing, I guess, on that one. And then the other one is
for
you can
Jazzy,
comment on that.
yeah, for Jazzy, I would just keep on pushing them. Like, don't take no for an answer. I know for a fact people have gotten prorated credits back on subscriptions.
Oh, good.
Yeah, and that's the funny
They're
thing
not going
is,
to
like,
give it up easy.
yeah, I was really a defender of the Tone Poet Society, because first of all, I'm in a subscription-based business in my personal life for my profession, and it's harder to get a new customer than to keep an existing one. And the way you keep existing ones is showing loyalty. So that, for what Vinyl Me Please really got away from was that economical incentive to be a long-time subscriber. And that's why I was really a defender of Tone Poet Society, because the discount was there, the money on the shipping. Like, if you're going to get most or every or all of them, they did the right thing. Like, they weren't hurting anybody. If you don't want it, just don't do it,
Right.
So to your point, I hope more brands or labels stick with that idea. I know Third Man gives you a deal if you're in their quarterly club. If you do a year in advance, you do save some money, and like they give you some access to some exclusive stuff if you want. It's just the right thing to do, I think.
Yeah.
That's the point.
Yep, absolutely. All right. Just for again, so this isn't a 3-hour video. We'll just keep it moving a little bit because we got a lot of stuff we want to talk about. Okay, education and history. And this is one that you brought up. I didn't really have this on my list, but it's such a great point. So I'm going to let you talk about what you mean by that.
I'm just really mad at myself. And I think this goes back to, like, your first point about ritual and being focused on the wrong thing or the wrong process. I've gotten away from reading liner notes like I used to. I've gotten away from reading through, like, the booklets and deluxe editions and box sets. Even if you buy a used record, just looking at the credits and things like that. I've just gotten away from that. That taught me so much, and I'm really disappointed in myself. So one of the things that and I unfortunately, I've replaced that with, like, YouTube and Discogs, and it's not the same, because everybody's saying this. In my opinion, everybody's saying the same thing in those videos, and nothing's really descriptive. There's very few content creators, I think, that come out and really, like, knock me off my chair with, like, insight to what's actually the story behind some of these artists or records. So I think if I continue to read the liner notes, I'll appreciate those videos and those comments and blogs more, because I'm getting more historical information from the source and then getting people's opinion. The opinions have replaced the actual facts in a way. So just kind of
the thing about
digging
liner
through.
notes too is that, like, they're very tied to the era. I mean, they
Yeah.
were printed with the record, right? So it's kind of fun sometimes to go back in time and just see what the original thoughts were or the reviews were and stuff like that around a record, like when it came out.
What about even on, like, the old CBS and Columbia inner sleeves would have, like, the other records in the catalog at the time? Like, that's great too,
Yep.
Puts in perspective when things came out, like what era is in. All that's important. And if you think about, like, our personal journeys with jazz, I know we talk about jazz a lot. It all was because I opened the CD book, or I opened the inner sleeve and, like, found out who the players were, well, and what label it was on, and that kind of helps. So I just think that they're doing such a great job in these, like, reissues and curated deluxe editions of kind of going more into detail, that I should take more advantage of it. I know, like, with the Bob Dylan bootleg series, since I was a kid, those books in themselves could be sold alone, I think, and have value even without the music. So there's a lot more to be had if you dig into that stuff. And one other thing on this, I'm sorry, Jason. I have gotten a couple of box sets that I think Hendrix does this mostly, but it comes with a documentary. That's cool too. Like, I'd like to see more of that, where they're putting out, a really great production or even like a complimentary podcast on the release, which has been a lot of fun in some instances. So there's a lot to learn that puts things in perspective. Sometimes I really don't care who mastered it. Like I want to know like about the artist.
Yeah, what was it like in the studio on the day or something or whatever?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, it's like as you're like developing my thoughts for me as you're talking here, because initially I was like, I have a bunch of books and I used to be really into reading. You know, I don't know, I guess time gets away from you and stuff, and then you don't read that stuff. And like you said, like there's just something about reading it, a qualified book, a really good book, that you just can't always find that stuff on the internet. But then I like what you said too about like documentaries and films and things like that. That is a more, I don't know, passive way of consuming the information, I guess. Like way more of us will sit through a YouTube video or something than are going to read a book, I think, right? And that's coming from somebody that's collected books and been an avid reader up until the last few years. It's just, man, I just don't have time for that anymore. So I think if they could produce that stuff into another form that would make it easier to consume now for us in 2025, that would be fantastic.
I thought it was really cool when Vinyl Me Please. One thing that Vinyl Me Please does really well is their anthology series, and some of the early anthologies came with like a podcast series. Like the first 2 records would be episode 1, next 2 would be episode 2. Those are great.
Yeah.
And again, they also have extensive liner notes, or they used to in some of those stuff. So,
well, just real quick on the comments here, I am McLovin. Great discussion. I've got around. Might as well throw it up here. 1,500 records. I got sucked into the FOMO world. I finally made a conscious effort to do a purge. Felt good downsizing over 120 albums. All killer, no filler. Yeah. So, I mean, that's great. And plus, sometimes our tastes change over time. Sometimes just, whatever. It just, some time goes by and you look at it and you say, am I really ever going to listen to that? I think that's great, because there's something about where your stuff begins to own you more than you own it. I'm sure everyone's heard that phrase. And it's sort of like when you have stuff just kind of encroaching on your personal space and you're not even using it, it's like, that's a good time to think about the purge. And then Jazzy Jeff says, I just listened to Africa Brass. Liner notes were so good. And OG Mono that I've listened to every couple of weeks since I bought it this summer. Cool.
Nice.
Very cool. All right. We'll keep it rolling here. So next up, and this is one that I thought of, and this is something that, a lot of discussions we have and stuff on different channels or different things. Oftentimes we get into, well, this pressing sounds better than that pressing, or this had a split, spine or whatever it is and stuff. And, I'm just not as meticulous about that stuff anymore. Like I said, 2024 kind of changed some things for me. I just got, I'll buy something off of, what did I get? I got like a Target record of like Wu-Tang Clan, right? And it sounds great. It sounds fine. Like I don't have any complaints. So am I going to continue to seek for an OG? Probably not. Like, that's fine for me. The OGs are pretty expensive. I'm ready to move on from it. I have one I can listen to. It sounds fine. And I've really tried to more adopt that attitude, whether it's an OG or an original or I'm rather a reissue or a recent reissue or whatever, is just, I don't need to A/B test everything. I don't need to keep buying and trying to hunt for that one that's going to sound 1% better or 2% better. Like, I'm just going to appreciate what I have. It sounds good. I don't need to hear 2 of them side by side to know whether I like something. Yes. Does an example of this would be like Eric Dolphy's Out to Lunch, which is really, I think, the only record I own multiple copies of. I did a shootout of it. I did classic series all the way back to an OG, all the way to a 45 RPM Music Matters. They all sound pretty damn close. You know what I mean? It's kind of like if I wasn't shooting them out in the moment, I mean, yes, this one has a little more top end. This one has a little more bottom end. So I'm not saying never do that. Find the one you like, of course. But I just can't keep chasing that sound. Like, I just have to, good enough eventually is like enough for me. And, and so that's kind of the enjoying the positive part of it. And, I think looking for the negative, to your point, you mentioned it yourself, is that especially when you're spending a lot of money on reissues. I get it. It's a new record. It should be clean. It shouldn't have a split. It shouldn't have a dinged corner. It shouldn't have this and that. But I say but because I really make a conscious effort to kind of let certain things go. I'll be honest with you. I don't care if it has a ding corner. What am I going to do? I'm not framing it like I'm going to pick it up. I'm going to take the record out. I'm going to play it. Like, so what? Yes, if the ringware is so bad, it's really taking away from the artwork, then yeah, I might consider an upgrade or something. Not saying I'm right, by the way, on any of this stuff. But this is just something that I think bringing to 2025, I just want to do more of, which is just be happy with what I have and just listen to it. If it sounds good, wow, listen to that sound stage. Listen, it's got a great low end, top end. The vocals are coming through, like, done. I'm good. So that's what I'll say about that.
No, I agree with you. I went from most of my life, like getting a new item, a new like CD or tape or record or whatever, and like opening it up and like opening the gate folds, looking at the sleeve, like whatever, looking at the credit. I went from that to like opening it. Now I'm like, all right, is it warped? It's like, and then the anxiety of like putting it on for the first time, I'm trying to remove myself from that because it's a struggle. And I think it is created by the fact that, you know, they market this stuff. And you know what? I'm a defender of it, rightfully so. I think a lot of this stuff is really high quality, and I think it's really great that they're a fifth the cost of an OG and VG plus, or a third of the cost of an OG and VG plus. But if you're going to put that message out there, like, just do the right thing for people, like get it right, especially some of these smaller print, like you're going to make a 3,000 of something, like take the extra 2 weeks on the release date and make sure everybody looks at it before they put it in the goddamn sleeve and send it to you. Like, come on.
Yeah.
And it's
being
like,
presented as such a high quality product. Present something high quality.
Yeah. That's the thing. And that's why I have some other resolutions to kind of speak to that. Because like we're going back to this idea, and I think that might be the underlying theme here, is like it's gotten away from being a hobby and something we've always done to like this expected process where it at times it loses its enjoyment. I just went 2 weeks without putting a record on my turntable at all. I just like needed a break. I needed a break because I was just like, I'm not doing this to look forward to it. I'm doing it to get through it. And it's not fun that way. I might even sell my records. Maybe that's a resolution for 2024.
He jokes about that. But if you ever do think of me, give me first pick at least.
I'll sell everything and have like 4 really nice DACs in every room in the house, and be good to go.
Well, I think the one thing I'll say to kind of amend what I said before is just that when you are buying this stuff and it has value and it's being presented a certain way, it should come that way because of the resale issue, right? Is that if you're buying a record for $150, right, like say a UHQR, and it comes less than stellar, that's like driving a car off the lot, right? It's like you're going to lose that money off the top. Like, it should be good so that you can maintain the value. I respect that part of it. I think, yes, of course. And that's why I don't buy those records, if I'm being honest. But it's like, no, but that would just add a whole nother layer of like insanity for me. I'd be like, oh, now I know people that return, guys in our crew, right, that return this stuff 2 or 3 times before they get one that's decent. And it's it's just, man.
But it's because I'm being picky. It's like if I'm going to the store and I'm getting an $8 Moody Blues record, I know what I'm getting, and I'm like, okay, it's got a pop here, like whatever, fine,
right.
Like, I know what I'm getting, but if I'm investing in something like that, I want it to be right. And damn it, you're putting it out there. It's gonna be the best thing I've ever heard. That's the other thing too, is that I think people, I think I hope I'm a little bit different than a lot of the hype, where I'm actually buying this stuff because I love it. I don't buy every UHQR because it's UHQR. I'm buying the ones that I like, but I like that presentation. I like that offering. so yeah, that puts even more pressure, because I'm not just getting this to collect it and they say I got the whole series, look at me. It's like, no, there's plenty of those I don't have because I don't like the album or I don't like the artist. I'm not afraid to not have it. Oh, you don't have that one? No, I don't have that one. I don't want that one, so I don't have that one. Yeah,
I
it's
think there's certain parts of this hobby, to your point, that have like built-in added stress, right?
yes.
I spent I bought a box set for $300. Like, it's like there's a lot at stake. It's got to be right. And so what you don't want is the additional stress. Like, and that's where, quality control, it's so key, right? It's like, and I don't know why it's so difficult. I don't know if you saw this. I don't even know if it was a real photo. I saw it on Facebook Marketplace or somewhere. Somebody posted a record that had two labels, one in the center where it belonged, and one was just stamped onto the grooves, like in the middle of the record. And I was just like, how is that? Is this a joke? Like, how does that leave the pressing plant, But
I can see that happening, but how does that go into somebody's hands who's putting it in a sleeve?
Exactly. Yeah, it's the most obvious thing. How do you miss that?
If you're pressing 900,000 Taylor Swift records, okay, fine, I get it. But if you're pressing, 3,000 some serial numbered, like, come on, guys.
Yeah.
Come on.
Scrutinize everyone. Yep.
Right.
Well, yeah, and just to put this is going to be beating a dead horse, but just to kind of put a bow on it, is that, like, yes, again, it just goes back to, you're presenting this as a premium product. You're putting a stamp on it that says 1 out of 5,000 or whatever. Freaking make sure everyone has the value you're saying it has, so that people aren't having to return them. It's not about the label or the distributor having to receive, oh yeah, it's fine for us, we'll just ship another one. No, it's the inconvenience to the person that's buying it. It's like, so anyway.
Yeah. Have you ever tried to return a box set? Good luck.
No. I don't want to. All right. So next up we have, well, let me check that comments here, make sure we're.
Well, I have a couple more resolutions that might fit into that topic too, but
so here, this is actually perfect timing. Oh, so I'm gonna let you go, but I am McLovin. We're gonna get into this. That's a great
yes.
point. My
actually, let's
focus
do
this
it
coming year is on buying less vinyl, investing money in my setup. Beautiful. Group Seeker says that's the move. Absolutely. Sorry, let me just get these last couple, and then I'm gonna let you jump right in. This might be one of the most real talks on collecting I've ever heard. Thank you, Brandon. Appreciate you. And McLevin says, I seen the same picture, even have the spindle hole. Oh, right. Yeah. I know, that was crazy. How is that possible? Okay, sorry, bro. Go ahead.
No, on equipment. So I just want to shout out McLevin, because he's gone from 1,500 to, I think, 1,375 or so. So he's starting to get rid of all the stuff he doesn't want. When you upgrade your equipment, those are going to be like having 1,300 new records again, because you're going to go back. And that was a huge. I upgraded my equipment in 2020, and it's an end game turntable for me. I'm very confident of that. That doesn't mean I may not get an upgrade on it, but if I did, it would be a serious move. But when I got that new turntable 4 or 5 years ago, I felt like I never listened to records the right way. And there is a rabbit hole that we've all experienced going down that path, but it was like just rediscovering your collection in a new way. It was pretty awesome. One of my resolutions is I have 2 turntables. I have my one I put on a pedestal, let's say, and then I have a secondary one that I use just to kind of preserve the first one a bit and the cartridge on the first one. But I want to upgrade my second one, and I want to, I have a moving coil on my main table. I want a moving magnet cartridge, and I want something a little bit different. I just want a different experience. And, if I'm not going to play some kind of audiophile, high quality pressing, I want to have something I could just put on and enjoy a little bit differently. So my second table's fine. I'm just getting antsy. I want new equipment. That's what it comes down to. But I think like if you get to a point where you're kind of plateauing on your collection, I think doing little tweaks to your equipment is a lot more fun than people think it is. Even if you're not like I'm not a gearhead really. I've never been into cars. I've never been into computers and things like that, like some people are. But doing those tweaks and getting a new cartridge or a different cartridge or new cables or a new preamp, that's so much fun. So much. And you can build into it. You don't have to do it all in one shot. You can just make one change that's going to make a difference, or maybe not make a difference. You can find out you don't like it and you go back to it and you realize how good your original one was. That's happened to me too. So that's a really deep way of kind of reinventing yourself in the hobby as well.
Yeah, like you said, you got to be careful. It can end up being another rabbit hole, and I've sort of fallen in that a little bit. But yeah, I mean, I even made a video of it last year, which was upgrading my system. And granted, I had a budget system for a while. I mean, it was what most people would consider. Not, I say budget. It was decent, but it was a good starter system, and I was ready to kind of upgrade. And I was, kind of like going back and forth I just found myself like not listening to vinyl that much for a while. And I was like, let's assess this and see kind of what's going on. And I can't be happier with my choices. I've made some moves since then. Like I said, that's kind of where the rabbit hole comes in, because it's hard. It's difficult too with some of this. With a record, it's easy to like turn around, right? Like I bought a record. I don't want, I decided to upgrade it. And so I, give it away, throw it up on eBay, Discogs, whatever. With equipment, it can be a little more difficult, which is why I have some stuff just sitting in my garage right now. So that's the part I hate. I need to figure out that part of it. But to your point, though, is my enjoyment has increased immensely. And you're right. You go back and you will listen to your record collection, the records you already have, in a new way, almost like listening to them for the first time. It's just going to be more fun again, like putting on that old record that wasn't sounding so great and then really hear it in a new way. So yeah, I completely agree.
Yeah, I get jealous. Like one of my best friends just got his first turntable. I set up my daughter for a 10-year-old. She has a really nice setup because she got a lot of my hand-me-downs and my dad's hand-me-downs. So like I remember setting it up for her and like her playing her first record on. I was like, damn, this sounds good. Like because it did sound good, but it's also a different perspective than what you're used to listening to on your own system. Right. That's fun
Right.
when you hear somebody else's stuff, no matter what part of the spectrum it falls on. It's like, oh man, like this sounds good here too. Like maybe I should downgrade. That's not going to happen, but maybe I can downgrade my equipment and be just as happy. It's kind of true. And that's the other beauty about vinyl too. It's like, yeah, you could take a CD and put it on different systems. You really have to spend a lot of money to make, in my opinion, from what I've heard, to make a CD sound that much different on different setups, CD players and speakers. But vinyl, man, there's really a big change as you swap equipment in and out and components in and out. I think more than other formats.
Right. Yeah, no, totally agree. And it's fun. Again, the part of the reason I would, for myself, it's kind of a cautionary tale, which goes back to trying to find a point where I'm happy, right? Because it's like with same thing with vinyl, right? It's like, oh, but this record is supposed to sound like 2% better than the one I have. So same thing with the stereo. It's going to sound different, might sound just as good, but this one has better high end, this one has better low end, just like two different pressings. The next thing you know, you're like me with two different sets of speakers trying to figure out which one am I going to keep and all of this stuff. And look, I'm not a gearhead either. I know some people love that. People that have a whole garage full of stuff and they just pull it in and out and swap things out. And depending on what kind of music they're listening to or whatever, that's not really me. Like I kind of want to set it and forget it kind of a thing. So I like what Jazzy Jeff says, similar to you, Chris. He's got two turntables, one stereo, one mono in this case. Lots of mono jazz, bought the set of transformers. We're sure it wouldn't. I think you said we're gonna say wouldn't make much of a difference, but it made a huge difference. So that's really cool.
That's one of my goals. I think that's what I'm kind of considering. It might not. I hope it happens this year, it might not. But I really want a turntable that I can easily swap out mono to stereo carts.
Yeah.
So that's kind of been when I've been kind of researching what I've been leaning towards. But there's one setup I have my heart set on that doesn't really accomplish that easily. So I'm kind of torn. We'll see what happens.
And then McLevin says, let's do some soul searching, new equipment versus vintage equipment. How much? Well, you and I have had this discussion before, Chris, is that I really went for a vintage system. I just want my childhood again, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
And I know that's like a dirty word sometimes to say nostalgia, but I got a system that is a nice system that someone would have had in like the early 80s. That's how I try to listen, in the same way when I was growing up. And that's how I have my system. And in a way, it makes me feel like I'm back in the early 80s listening to vinyl again, except a system that I couldn't afford back then, right? That's kind of my approach. I'm very much like with my system and the way that I kind of am a kind of collector I am, or whatever you want to say, is like, I want to, like I said, I got too far away from this and I decided to kind of reel it back. Like, I just want to enjoy it the same way that I did once when I was young. And so that's kind of where my whole theme is. But anyway, sorry, Chris.
No, I would say to McLovin, and again, I'm not a gearhead, so everybody can beat my ass on this if they want. I don't care. I would say new speakers from a vintage brand, a brand that's been around for a long time. I would say vintage preamp, integrated amp, amplifier, all of it, but then modern turntable. I don't see the appeal of a vintage turntable if you're just looking for performance and output. I mean, I guess there's maybe like a Lin is like a corner case for me, but that's not cheap at all.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that the modern turntables are so impressive that it's hard to get away from being tempted by that. But I think vintage receivers and amps and preamps all sound awesome. And I'm like, a couple of my friends do have vintage stuff, and I'm very jealous of it. Very, very jealous of their vintage stuff. And it's not anything extravagant. It's like really nice middle of the line equipment, and it looks cool. It definitely sounds, I guess, warmer. It sounds a little bit more fuller in a lot of ways, but I guess I want to have both. Maybe I need to have a vintage setup and a new setup. That's
there you go.
look at it.
The new secondary turntable will be a vintage one. Well, the one thing that I'm learning, which is a pain in the ass, and it's the reason why I opted not to do this before, which is what happens when something doesn't work. What happens when you blow something, burns out or something. It's like the tape deck, dude. There's nowhere anywhere near me that will touch that thing with a 10-foot pole. I'm going to have to drive it down to Seattle or something to do it, which is like 3.5 hours for me. And it's like, when am I going to do that and stuff? So it's just, that is the one thing with vintage you got to worry about. Right. And that's why I tried to buy the main setup that I have, the amp and the turntable were both refurbished. That was like, I did not want to have to mess around. If I could avoid it, I didn't want to have to have this stuff go into the shop, so, but that's, there you go. That's dealing with vintage. So.
Yeah. That's my big thing is I don't want to have to fix anything beyond reason. I'm not going to if something goes wrong with my amp, I'm not going to unscrew it and start fishing around in there. I'm not capable of it. I'll do more damage than I do good. So.
Yeah, exactly right. I just got to shout out Jeff Dyer of the Uncle Sally band. Jeff, thank you so much. Same goes to you, man. Have a great 2025. Thanks for checking in. Don't be a stranger. Everyone go check out Uncle Sally. Just fantastic music. So thanks, Jeff. Appreciate you, man. Yeah, I agree, man. Every time I've tried to get my hands, and you go on these Facebook forums and it's like, oh yeah, all you got to do is like replace this and just throw a little grease on that. And it's like, never works for me. So
yeah. And plus you spend too much time cleaning records. You don't have time to do repairs.
I know, right? It's like, I don't have time for that. I have to return all my seam splits and stuff, All right. So last topic here is going to be specific, right? To content creation, but it earns a spot on this list just because that's obviously what I do. And I know my guy Chris has been doing it here with me for a while, which he's phenomenal and has been wanting to do his own thing here. And so I'll let you jump in on this. I do have some things to say about it, but so what's your content creation goals for 2025, Chris?
Oh man. Well, to continue what we do, because I love it, and I love being on Surface Noise, the B-side. So it's something I look forward to. I might record a video. I might. I'm a little
And upload it.
And upload it. And I'm not intimidated by it. I'm not shy about it. I just don't know what my message will be on a lot of the topics I have. I don't want to sit up here and just show a record and show everybody what I bought last week. I'm just not into that. I watch those videos, but I don't want to create those videos. So I started off on my public Instagram account, kind of curating a daily playlist. I choose a new song daily and kind of build this never-ending playlist. And
which is called what?
The Groove Seeker playlist. So I do the Groove Seeker annual daily edition, where I just pick one song a day and kind of share it with people, and then I have a link to Tidal, which has the playlist built so you can reference it. And it just highlights my favorite songs. I have a lot of favorite songs, so I just pick one, put one up, and hopefully start a discussion, and people can kind of follow that. But
so Groove Seeker, at Groove Seeker on Instagram for everybody who wants to check it out.
Yeah, it's the Groove Seeker, I think.
Oh, the Groove Seeker. Sorry, I missed that.
Yeah, I'm so excited. I'm so excited about creating content. I don't even know my own handle. It's the Groove Seeker on Instagram.
That's me. That Groove Seeker. Okay, got it. And
it's a little bit different
that
now.
That's
okay. So yeah, I think, and I think people should know this, and I'm going to give Jason a huge shout out here. It's easy to create content. It's easy to hit record and kind of upload a video, but it's really difficult to put something high quality out there. And it's really difficult to put something that's meaningful and not what everybody else is doing. And it's extremely difficult to be unique, not in the sense of your personality or what your channel talks about, but not repeating the same general comments that everybody else is making. And it becomes this race to kind of who gets it out there first. I don't want to just do something that's a copycat. I want to put a stamp on it. So that's really been the hesitation of me actually doing something. The time and the lack of artistic ability and the vision on what I might do. So, but the Instagram has been fun, and this has been so much fun. I mean, doing this, I want to do more of it with you in the new year and the other guys on Surface Noise, just because it's a great outlet. Growing up working in music stores and having a lot of friends and family really into music, this is all I've talked about with people. Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing is yet to be seen, but it kind of gives me another outlet and another perspective on it, which has just been really fulfilling. So yeah, I love that. Yeah, I mean, for me, this is going to be coming up. I'll have my 2-year anniversary on YouTube come like April or something, I guess, of 2025. And 2024 was kind of a whole different journey from 2023 for me. And so, getting into like Whatnot and stuff like that. And so I didn't really make hardly any like pre-recorded records or video, but that is going to change. I want to get back to it because I love it. And I want to get back because that's to me where the creativity comes in. That's where, to your point, well, before I go there, but that's just where I have fun with it, right? Is like, figuring out what you're going to do, making a story out of it, editing it up, making it fun and putting it out there. It just feels like it serves a certain kind of artistic quality in me that I enjoy. And then I really got more into the live streaming this year, which has been great. But for me, I really need to find that balance going into 2025. To your point, if you want to be successful quickly, then yeah, just do what everyone else is doing, right? It's like that. YouTube will tell you that. Instagram will tell you that. Find a successful creator and just use that as a template. And that's fine. People can do that. And, people will get to consume more stuff that they're already getting. And I've really tried to just shut all of that stuff out, right? And just do whatever I feel like, and listen to the community and stuff, but really just kind of do my thing and make it different and make it fun. And again, kind of appeal to those artistic kind of sensibilities that I have and stuff. Yeah, that means you're maybe not going to get as much attention with
way, I want to appreciate everyone that's been watching and everyone that has supported the channel and these streams. It means a lot to me. We've really got I love the audience that we're building, and you guys are our people. And that's what I love about it, right? Is that we're not trying to appeal to everybody. We're not trying to be like, hey, let's be edgy and let's do this and that so that we can get more attention and more numbers and all that. It's not about that. We know there's people that love this as much as we do and that like these kinds of discussions, and this is for you, so I expect more of that going into 2025, and hopefully being more entertaining and have more fun and get you guys even involved more, which is why I love doing the games and stuff like that on like Service Noise. And we did the fantasy draft for jazz. Like that was fun. And we want to get, you guys involved in that stuff too, and really make it a community of like just having fun, having these great discussions. And anyway, not to go overboard on it, but yeah, expect more of that in 2025. Again, more pre-recorded stuff, some really fun videos, I think, coming your way as well. And yeah, I just want to continue with this. Obviously, working with you, Chris, has been amazing. Working with Brandon has been amazing. And I just want to continue doing more of that as well. And yeah, man, it's been fun. So we'll level it up even more for 2025, man. I'm excited.
Well, I'm glad you're commenting on your pre-recorded stuff, because people don't really know the history of how I showed up just kind of talking to you about this, but I'm not a content creator at all. I'm a content participator for sure. And when I was watching your early videos, you were one of the few music related channels that I followed, and I followed all the time. Like you drop a video early Saturday morning, like I was like, all right, breakfast time, and Jason and his sunglasses, and then I started following you guys on Surface Noise, and I'm like, oh, this is cool. Now we have like discussion on record collecting and music. So I just reached out to you, and I'm saying that because if it wasn't for your original videos, I wouldn't have reached out to you, because I thought they were very good from a production standpoint, obviously, but just because you're talking about music. And I think what I've learned in my short time, and I've met some really amazing people that a lot of these guys I talk to, I'm fortunate to talk to every day. I don't know if they're fortunate that I reach out to them every day, but I know that I feel very fortunate that I talk to them every day, or, a couple times a week, whatever. My perception of what they refer to as the vinyl community wasn't really what I thought it was going to be. And I think that there is a more seasoned group of people in that community that were probably doing this out of a kind of a purity. And I affiliated with like working in a virtual record store. If you've ever worked in a music store, like this is all you talk about all day. You don't talk about the weather or politics or anything else, but how could you like that band? How could you say this album is better than that album? Or like, what are you going to pick up next week? Or like, what show are we going to? Or what are you doing after work? Like, you want to come listen to this? And that's what I love about these interactions that we've had on a weekly basis, and throwing guys like Brandon in the mix, and the guys on Surface Noise. We have moments on those shows where it's like, yeah, this is what it's really about. So I think you should keep on forging that path, because I can tell you from somebody fairly new to this, you can be turned off by it pretty quickly. And the people that aren't front and center all the time are really offering some of the best opinions and comments and discussions. And it shouldn't be you have to dig for that. That should really be the forefront of what we're supposed to do here. Because I was a record snob, or a music snob, when I was young. I was unapproachable about things, and like, I put Lou Reed. I had like a shrine to Lou Reed. He was the god, and like a little bit of a hipster thing going on, and you can't listen to the Dead if you're a punk rocker and all that crap. And I can see that kind of transforming in a different way, an underbelly of that attitude. Maybe some gatekeeping, maybe some elitism. And I just think that people need to recognize that at one point you didn't know a goddamn thing either about rock and roll. So like, don't turn people out or turn people off to coming into this. Because if you
Yeah.
do that, this all dies. Like, don't tell the kid that they are not worthy of whatever band or whatever record, because if you turn them away, they're not going to be able to participate. And that's just the wrong thing to do.
I don't usually give it any attention because I just want to be the change, and it sounds cheesy, but I just try to keep things positive and good energy and all of that. Yes, there is a whole other side of the vinyl community. Most of us are aware of it, and you know, we will never be that. We will always, myself and anyone that I work with will always be, I work with people that are sincere and positive and love this stuff and want to uplift the community. And so that's just what this will always be. However long I'm out here, it's just always going to be an alternative to that other stuff. So, but yeah, thanks for saying that, Chris, man. It's been a pleasure, dude. And I'm actually really looking forward to 2025, man. And for a lot of different aspects, listening to more great records, seeing what happens to what happens to vinyl in 2025. Hopefully it continues to thrive, but also continue to work with guys like you, man. So, well, thanks to everybody that joined today. I really appreciate you guys for being here. I just want to check the comments real quick. McLovin, walking into any record shop, it could be any scene from the movie High Fidelity. Yeah, exactly. Yep. Yeah. Enough already. All right, you guys. Sincerely appreciate you. Thanks so much for supporting us in 2024 and just hanging out with us and building relationships. Let's continue to do this into 2025. And yeah, we will see you guys next time.
Happy New Year.
See you, Dave.